high above the mortal world, where storm clouds coil around the peak of Mount Olympus and thunder never truly sleeps. Zeus reigns as the supreme ruler of gods and men. To some, he is the divine hero who brought order to chaos, overthrowing the Titans and ending an age of tyranny. To others, he is a fearsome tyrant whose lightning strikes without mercy, leaving devastation in his wake. His name alone is enough to inspire both worship and terror. Zeus is often praised as the guardian of justice, the enforcer of sacred laws, and the protector of balance in the cosmos. Yet, the same God who upholds order is also known for his uncontrollable wrath, his cruel punishments, and his countless betrayals. Cities have fallen beneath his storms, mortals have suffered for his pride, and even fellow gods have trembled before his authority. Ancient myths whisper a dangerous question, one rarely spoken aloud on Olympus. Was Zeus truly a heroic savior, or merely a conqueror who replaced one form of tyranny with another? As thunder echoes across the heavens, the line between hero and villain begins to blur. Perhaps Zeus was never meant to be judged as purely good or evil, but as a reflection of power itself, magnificent, terrifying, and deeply flawed. Part 1. Zeus, the symbol of order and the hero who brought enlightenment. Before Zeus became a figure of controversy, fear, and contradiction, he was first and foremost a liberator. To understand why ancient Greeks once revered him as a heroic force of enlightenment, we must return to the primordial age, an era ruled not by justice, but by dread. 1. The world before Zeus, chaos beneath the Titans. In the age before Olympus, the cosmos was governed by the Titans, colossal beings born from Gaia, Earth, and Uranus, sky. Among them, Cronus reigned supreme. His rule, however, was not one of wisdom or compassion. Cronus governed through paranoia and cruelty, devouring his own children out of fear that one day they would overthrow him. This was a universe frozen in terror, where power was inherited through violence, and survival depended on submission. There were no laws, no mercy, and no hope of change. Mortals, if they existed at all in this age, were insignificant and helpless beneath the Titan's shadow. In Greek myth, chaos is not merely disorder, it is stagnation. And Cronus represented the ultimate stagnation, time devouring its own future. 2. The birth of a rebel, Zeus as the chosen liberator. Zeus was born into this nightmare. Hidden away by his mother Rhea, he escaped the fate of being consumed by his father. Raised in secrecy, Zeus grew not only in strength, but in awareness. Unlike Cronus, who feared the future, Zeus embraced it. When Zeus returned to challenge the Titans, he did not stand alone. He freed his swallowed siblings, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, and Hestia, restoring what Cronus had erased. More importantly, Zeus released the Cyclopes and the Cinemanes, ancient beings unjustly imprisoned by the Titans. This act was revolutionary. Zeus did not merely seize power, he redistributed it. In return, the Cyclopes gifted him thunder and lightning, not just weapons, but symbols of divine authority forged through alliance, not tyranny. Thus began the Titanomachy, a cosmic war that shook the foundations of existence itself. 3. The Titanomachy, war for a new order. For 10 years, gods and titans clashed in a battle that defined the future of the universe. Mountains were torn apart, seas boiled, and the heavens trembled. But what distinguished Zeus from the Titans was not raw strength. It was vision. The Titans fought to preserve dominance. Zeus fought to replace chaos with structure. With the help of his allies, Zeus defeated Cronus and cast the Titans into Tartarus. This victory marked more than the end of a war. It marked the birth of a new cosmic order. To ancient Greeks, this was the ultimate heroic act, overthrowing an oppressive regime and establishing balance where only fear once existed. 4. Zeus the lawgiver, architect of divine justice. After the war, Zeus did something no ruler before him had done. He established laws. Zeus became the guardian of Dike, justice, and Themis, divine law. Oaths sworn in his name became sacred. Crimes such as perjury, betrayal of guests, and violation of moral boundaries were now punishable not by whim, but by cosmic law. This was a radical shift. Power was no longer absolute and arbitrary, it was bound by rules. Zeus presided over the council of gods, settling disputes and maintaining balance between rival forces. Even gods were not above the order he created. In mythic terms, Zeus transformed the universe from a battlefield into a system. This is why he was worshipped as Zeus Nomios, Zeus of law. 5. Protector of mortals. Zeus as a benevolent guardian. While Zeus is often remembered for his wrath, ancient worship tells a different story. To mortals, Zeus was a protector. As Zeus Xenios, he safeguarded guests and travelers, ensuring hospitality, a sacred value in Greek culture. To violate a guest was to invite divine punishment. As Zeus Horkios, he watched over oaths and promises, holding kings and commoners alike accountable. As Zeus Ombrios, he brought rain to nourish crops, sustaining life itself. These aspects portray Zeus not as a distant tyrant, but as an active guardian of human civilization. He was the god who ensured that societies could function, that trust had meaning, and that nature followed predictable cycles. In a world without modern law or science, Zeus was the embodiment of stability. 6. The heroic ideal, strength guided by responsibility. Unlike many mythic rulers, Zeus did not retreat into isolation. He bore responsibility for the entire cosmos. When monsters threatened balance, such as Typhon, the embodiment of chaos, Zeus alone stood against them. His battle with Typhon was not merely physical, it was symbolic. Typhon represented the return of primordial chaos. Zeus's victory reaffirmed the triumph of order over entropy. To the Greeks, this was heroism on a cosmic scale. Zeus was not flawless, but he was necessary. He carried the burden of leadership in a universe that constantly threatened to fall apart. 7. Enlightenment through imperfection. Ironically, Zeus's imperfections made him more relatable and more revered. Unlike abstract gods of pure good, Zeus struggled with temptation, anger, and doubt. Yet despite these flaws, he upheld the structure of the universe. This reflected a profound philosophical idea. Perfection is not required for justice to exist. Order is not born from purity, but from effort. Zeus embodied this truth. 8. Zeus as a symbol of civilization itself. In the end, Zeus was more than a god. He was a metaphor. He represented the rise of civilization from chaos, the replacement of brute force with law, and the belief that power should serve balance rather than destruction. To ancient Greeks, Zeus was the thunder that ended the storm, not the storm itself. He was the hero who illuminated the darkness, even if his light cast long, terrifying shadows. Part 2. Zeus, the villain hidden behind absolute power. If Zeus was once hailed as the great liberator who brought order to a broken cosmos, then a darker truth slowly emerges as his reign continues. For every law he established, there was a punishment delivered without mercy. For every balance he claimed to uphold, there was a life shattered beneath his thunder. Behind the image of the heroic king of Olympus stands another figure, one far more unsettling. Zeus as the embodiment of unchecked, absolute power. 1. When order becomes oppression. The greatest danger of absolute authority is not chaos, it is certainty. Zeus ruled not because he was always just, but because he was unquestionable. His laws were final, his judgments irreversible. In myth after myth, Zeus punishes not only criminals, but challengers, those who dared to think beyond the limits he set. Prometheus did not commit an act of evil. He gave fire to humanity, a gift of progress and enlightenment. Yet Zeus chained him to a rock, condemning him to eternal torment. This was not justice. This was control. Fire symbolized independence. Knowledge threatened hierarchy. Zeus did not punish Prometheus because he was wrong. He punished him because he defied divine monopoly over power. Here, Zeus ceases to be a hero and becomes something far more sinister, a ruler who fears the empowerment of others. 2. The tyranny of divine punishment. Zeus's punishments are legendary, not for their fairness, but for their cruelty. Mortals are wiped out in floods. Cities are destroyed by storms. Individuals are transformed into animals, stone, or shadow, stripped of identity itself. The Great Flood, often framed as divine cleansing, is perhaps the most chilling example. Humanity is nearly exterminated, not because all were corrupt, but because Zeus deemed the world disappointing. This is not moral judgment. This is divine impatience. Unlike human rulers bound by accountability, Zeus answers to no one. His wrath is immediate, total, and disproportionate. One offense can doom generations. Power without restraint does not protect order, it enforces fear. 3. Zeus and the illusion of moral authority. Zeus presents himself as the guardian of justice, yet repeatedly violates the very principles he enforces. He demands loyalty, yet betrays trust. He condemns excess, yet indulges endlessly. He punishes transgression, yet commits it freely. His countless affairs, often involving deception, coercion, or transformation, leave devastation in their wake. Mortals suffer divine consequences for relationships they never consented to. Hera's jealousy, though cruel, is born from Zeus's unchecked indulgence. In this hypocrisy lies the core of Zeus's villainy. Justice applied selectively is not justice. It is domination disguised as morality. 4. Fear is a tool of governance. Zeus rules Olympus not through admiration, but intimidation. Even the gods fear his thunderbolt. Rebellion is unthinkable, not because Zeus is beloved, but because resistance is fatal. In some lesser-known myths and darker interpretations, whispers circulate among the gods themselves, a silent understanding that Zeus's justice is arbitrary. His favor can vanish in an instant. This creates a universe governed not by trust, but by anxiety. A ruler feared by allies is no savior. 5. The psychological profile of a divine tyrant. Zeus's behavior reveals traits disturbingly familiar in real-world autocrats: paranoia, possessiveness, and obsession with control. Like Cronus before him, Zeus is haunted by prophecy. He fears being overthrown. He manipulates fate itself to prevent rivals from rising. In attempting to escape the sins of his father, Zeus slowly becomes his reflection. The cycle of tyranny continues, not through chains, but through lightning. 6. The silencing of alternative voices. Many figures punished by Zeus represent progress, resistance, or moral challenge. Prometheus symbolizes knowledge. Ixion challenges divine authority. Asclepius threatens death itself through healing. Each is destroyed or condemned. Zeus does not merely defeat chaos, he eradicates alternatives. A world with only one voice is not orderly, it is authoritarian. 7. Zeus as the villain of human suffering. From the mortal perspective, Zeus is unpredictable and terrifying. Prayers may go unanswered. Innocents may suffer. Storms strike without warning. To humans, Zeus is not a father, he is a force. And forces do not care. 8. The dark truth behind the throne. Perhaps the most unsettling interpretation is this: Zeus never truly replaced tyranny, he perfected it. Where Cronus devoured his children, Zeus devours rebellion. Where Titans ruled through brute strength, Zeus rules through law backed by terror. He did not end oppression, he systematized it. 9. Villain or necessary evil. And yet, this is what makes Zeus so disturbing. The cosmos remains stable. The world does not collapse. Order persists. Zeus's tyranny works. This forces an uncomfortable question. Is moral purity required for stability? Or does order inevitably demand sacrifice? Zeus may not be a hero, but he may be the cost of a functioning universe. 10. The shadow cast by the thunderbolt. In the end, Zeus is not a cartoon villain. He is something far more dangerous, a ruler who believes he is right. And those who believe themselves righteous are capable of the greatest cruelty. Behind the golden throne of Olympus stands not a savior, but a warning. That power, when absolute, does not reveal divinity, it reveals fear.
Part 3. The fragile boundary between hero and villain. At the heart of every great myth lies a contradiction, and nowhere is this more evident than in the figure of Zeus. After examining him as both a heroic architect of order and a hidden tyrant behind absolute power, we arrive at a more unsettling realization. Zeus cannot be confined to either role. He exists in the space between them, a fragile, shifting boundary where heroism and villainy blur into one another. This boundary is not accidental. It is the point of the myth, one beyond good and evil. Zeus as a mythic paradox. Greek mythology does not operate on modern moral absolutes. Its gods are not paragons of virtue, nor embodiments of pure evil. They are forces, reflections of reality magnified to cosmic scale. Zeus embodies this paradox perfectly. He is both the hand that builds and the hand that destroys. Without him, chaos would reign. Because of him, suffering endures. To ask whether Zeus is good or evil is to misunderstand his role. He is not a moral example. He is a structural necessity within the mythological universe. Like a storm that brings rain and devastation alike, Zeus exists beyond ethical simplicity. 2. Power as the defining force of identity. What defines Zeus more than any trait, more than wisdom, rage, or desire, is power. Power shapes perception. When Zeus punishes, it is called justice. When a mortal does the same, it is cruelty. The difference is not intent, but authority. This reveals a disturbing truth embedded in the myth. Morality bends around power. Zeus is heroic when power stabilizes the cosmos. He becomes villainous when that same power silences dissent. The boundary is not crossed, it moves. 3. The perspective of the ruled. From Olympus, Zeus appears necessary. From Earth, he appears arbitrary. This difference in perspective is crucial. Heroes and villains are not universal truths, they are positions in a hierarchy. To the gods who benefit from Zeus's rule, he is the pillar of order. To mortals struck by lightning, drowned by floods, or cursed by divine whim, he is indistinguishable from a monster. Greek myth does not resolve this contradiction. It preserves it. 4. Zeus and the human condition. Zeus is terrifying because he is familiar. His flaws, desire, jealousy, pride, fear of replacement are human weaknesses amplified by godhood. The myth suggests that absolute power does not eliminate these flaws. It weaponizes them. In this sense, Zeus is not an alien being. He is humanity with no limits. This is why he unsettles modern readers. We recognize him. 5. The failure of moral resolution. Unlike modern storytelling, Greek mythology refuses to punish Zeus for his excesses. There is no final reckoning, no divine tribunal, no fall from grace. Zeus remains king. This absence of moral resolution is intentional. It reflects a world where justice is not guaranteed, where stability matters more than fairness. The myth asks an uncomfortable question. Is it better to live under an unjust ruler than no ruler at all? 6. The cycle of tyranny and the fear of chaos. Zeus overthrew Cronus to end tyranny, yet he becomes tyrannical himself. This cyclical pattern reveals the myth's deepest insight. Tyranny does not arise from evil, it arises from fear. Fear of chaos, fear of loss, fear of the future. Zeus rules harshly, not because he delights in cruelty, but because he believes the alternative is worse. And history suggests he may be right. 7. Heroism as a temporary state. In Greek myth, heroism is not permanent, it is contextual. Zeus was a hero when he liberated the cosmos. He became something else when liberation turned into preservation at all costs. This suggests a radical idea. Heroes do not become villains because they change the world around them does. What once saved the world may later suffocate it. 8. The moral ambiguity of order. Order itself is morally neutral. It can protect or imprison. Zeus represents order in its purest form, vast, impersonal, indifferent to individual suffering. His justice maintains balance, not happiness. The myth does not celebrate this order. It accepts it. And acceptance is more chilling than approval. 9. Zeus as a mirror, not a judge. Ultimately, Zeus does not judge humanity. He reflects it. He shows what happens when intelligence gains power without humility, when leadership lacks accountability, and when fear governs decision-making. Zeus is not meant to inspire obedience. He is meant to provoke recognition. The final truth. Why Zeus endures. Zeus endures because he represents a truth too complex to discard. A world without him collapses. A world with him suffers. There is no clean answer. And that is why the boundary between hero and villain remains fragile, never fixed, never resolved. Conclusion. So, is Zeus a hero or a villain? He is neither, and both. Zeus is the embodiment of power's paradox, the force that saves the world and wounds it in the same motion. He stands not as a moral guide, but as a warning carved into myth that order without compassion becomes tyranny, and chaos without order becomes annihilation. In the thunder above Olympus, the ancient Greeks heard not the voice of a god, but the echo of an eternal question. How much darkness must be accepted to keep the world from falling apart? So, is Zeus truly a hero, or is he a villain hidden behind divine authority? Greek mythology offers no simple verdict, and that ambiguity is precisely the point. Zeus is not designed to comfort us with moral clarity. Instead, he unsettles us, forcing us to confront the uneasy relationship between power, order, and justice. As the ruler of Olympus, Zeus preserves cosmic balance and prevents the universe from collapsing into chaos. Without his thunderbolt, the fragile structure of existence would fracture, and the darkness of the primordial age would return. In this sense, Zeus is undeniably heroic, a guardian standing between civilization and annihilation. Yet the same power that sustains order also inflicts suffering. His punishments are often excessive, his judgments unchallenged, and his authority absolute. To those crushed beneath his storms, Zeus is not a savior, but a merciless force. What makes Zeus enduring is not his righteousness, but his realism. He embodies the truth that power is never pure. Authority, once absolute, inevitably bends morality to its will. Zeus does not rule because he is morally superior. He rules because the world functions under his dominion. Stability, in his realm, comes at a cost. In the end, Zeus is neither a moral ideal nor a cautionary tale to be easily dismissed. He is a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest fear, that order may require injustice and that peace may be built upon suffering. The thunder echoing from Mount Olympus is not a declaration of divine perfection. It is a reminder that the line between hero and villain is as thin as a lightning bolt, and just as unforgiving.
Zeus vs. Hades Part Bodyord Siari. Thunder on Olympus. When the king of the sky faces the lord of death. Two forms of power. One forbidden question. In Greek mythology, there is a question rarely spoken aloud, not because it is difficult, but because it is dangerous. Who is stronger, Zeus or Hades? Zeus, king of the gods, wielder of thunder, the one who overthrew the Titans, ruler of the sky and the divine order. Hades, the one who dwells in shadow, without a shining throne, without glorious temples, yet every living being ultimately belongs to him. One rules life in motion, the other rules eternal stillness. Zeus is worshipped through oaths. Hades is feared through instinct. And while Olympus has always believed Zeus to be the strongest, a quiet truth has existed since the universe was divided into three realms. Zeus has never ventured deep into the underworld. Not because of laws, not because of agreements, but because there are places where thunder is no longer the ultimate weapon. I, Zeus, the power of the victor. Zeus was not born the strongest god. He became the strongest because he won. Won, the god who overthrew his father. Zeus is the only Olympian who defeated his own father. Kronos triumphed over the Titans, an older, more primal generation of gods, survived a 10-year war that shook the cosmos itself. Zeus's lightning is more than a weapon. It is a symbol of judgment. When Zeus strikes, he does not merely destroy, he passes sentence. 2. The power of visibility. Zeus rules from the sky. Everyone sees him. Every god hears the thunder. His power lies in presence, overwhelming force, psychological dominance. Olympus exists because Zeus allows it to exist, but this creates a deadly paradox. Zeus's power depends on others recognizing him as king, and that is something Hades has never needed. Second, Hades, the power of the one who never needed to win. Hades never fought for the throne, not because he was weak, but because he chose the only domain that could never be taken from him. 1. Hades does not rule death, he owns it. A common misconception. Hades is not the god of death. He is the owner of death. Thanatos carries souls away, but Hades decides where those souls remain, or whether they are imprisoned forever. No being, not even Zeus, can escape that fate. 2. Power that requires no display. Hades does not need worshippers, temples. Prayers, he has time. Every battle Zeus wins, every empire that collapses, every god that fades into obscurity, only makes Hades' realm larger. Zeus rules while the world lives. Hades rules when everything ends. 3. The first moment of Zeus's doubt. Olympus had never questioned Zeus's power, until the day souls refused to move on. Spirits wandered. Death was delayed. The balance of the universe fractured. And Zeus realized something terrifying. Something was happening in Hades' domain that he could not control. Hera warned him. Athena analyzed it. Apollo remained silent. But Zeus, with the instinct of a ruler, did the only thing he knew. He decided to cross the boundary of the underworld himself. 4. When thunder meets shadow. For the first time in history, the sky did not answer Zeus. Lightning weakened as he descended. Light was swallowed whole. Thunder fell silent. There was no battlefield, no armies, only the stillness of death. And at its center, Hades was waiting. No anger, no challenge, just a single sentence, colder than fear itself. Do you bring thunder into a realm where nothing living remains to fear it, Zeus? V. The confrontation. Never recorded. Zeus hurled lightning. The ground split apart, but the underworld was unharmed. Hades did not strike back. He merely gestured. And Zeus saw heroes. He once blessed kings who swore loyalty to Olympus mortals, who died for ideals Zeus himself had granted all of them, standing behind Hades' throne. Every choice you make, Hades said, ends here. For the first time, Zeus understood. His power creates death. Hades' power possesses it. Ending of Part 1. The Fear. Zeus never admits Zeus withdrew, not defeated, but not victorious. Olympus still stood. Yet from that moment on, Zeus never again looked upon the underworld as a lesser realm. And the ancient Greeks acknowledged this truth without ever saying it aloud. They swore by Zeus's name, but they never spoke Hades' name lightly. Part 2. The Underworld Awakens. When death stops waiting. Opening. The war that does not begin with thunder. Wars usually begin with fire, with lightning, with screams. This one did not. It began with silence. After Zeus returned from the underworld, Olympus pretended nothing had happened. The gods resumed their feasts. Mortals continued their prayers. But something fundamental had shifted. Zeus no longer threw lightning casually. The sky hesitated before answering him. And for the first time since the Titan War, Olympus was afraid of something it could not see. Because the most dangerous truth was no longer hidden, Hades had not fought back. And that meant he was choosing the timing. When death stops, obeying it started subtly, not with gods, not with kings, but with ordinary deaths. Men fell in battle and did not arrive in the underworld. Victims of plagues lingered between breath and silence. Souls hovered at the edge of existence, unable to cross. Thanatos himself became restless. He still harvested souls, but the gates did not open. For the first time since the dawn of time, the underworld was not receiving what was promised. And Olympus realized the unthinkable. Hades was withholding death. Chut the panic of the gods. Athena was the first to understand the implication. Death was not merely an ending. It was a mechanism. Without death, War lost its meaning, sacrifice lost its weight, immortality became meaningless, Ares raged. "Let me march into the underworld," he demanded. "Let steel answer shadow." Athena stopped him with a single sentence. "You cannot kill what governs death." Apollo fell silent when his prophecies stopped resolving. The future no longer moved forward. It looped. Even Hera began to fear something she had never feared before. A king who no longer controlled consequences. Third, Zeus's first mistake. Zeus did what kings always do when power slips. He asserted it. He summoned the Moirai, the fates themselves. Clotho, Lachesis, Atropos. "Why has death slowed?" Zeus demanded. "Why does the world hesitate to end?" The fates did not bow. They did not answer directly. Atropos, she who cuts the thread, said only this: "Because the one who keeps the ledger has closed the book." Zeus understood immediately. This was not rebellion. This was accounting. Hades was reminding Olympus of something it had chosen to forget. Every god's power has a cost, and every cost is paid in death. 4. The underworld moves. Then it happened. The rivers of the underworld surged. Styx overflowed its banks. Lethe leaked forgetfulness into the dreams of gods. Souls pressed against the borders of reality. But still, Hades did not march. He did not invade. He expanded. The dead did not rise to attack Olympus. They whispered. They whispered to oracles, to madmen, to kings on their thrones at night. They whispered a single truth. The gods are not eternal. They are merely late. The realm Zeus cannot strike. Zeus gathered the gods. "Enough," he declared. "If Hades withholds death, I will take his realm from him." Lightning split the heavens as Olympus descended toward the chasm. And once again, Zeus made the same mistake. He believed power travels everywhere. The underworld did not resist. It absorbed. Lightning struck and vanished. Thunder roared and died, because the underworld was not a place. It was a state of being. You cannot conquer death. You can only arrive in it. And that was when Hades finally spoke to Zeus again. Not in anger, not in challenge, but in correction. "You rule because they fear losing what they have," Hades said. "I rule because everything they have eventually becomes mine." 6. The most dangerous realization. Zeus raised his thunderbolt, and for the first time he hesitated. Because he understood what striking Hades would mean. If Hades fell, who would receive the dead? If death lost its master, what would existence become? Endless suffering, endless decay, immortality as a curse. Hades was not Olympus's enemy. He was its foundation. And foundations do not threaten towers. They simply outlast them. Ending of Part 2. The balance breaks. Zeus withdrew again. This time, not in defiance, but in calculation. Olympus still stood. The underworld still waited. But something irreversible had happened. Zeus had realized he could not destroy Hades without destroying the universe that made Zeus king. And Hades had proven something even more terrifying. He did not need to win. He only needed to stop cooperating. Part 3. Judgment of the Immortals. When even gods are measured by death. Opening. The question no god dares to ask immortality was never meant to be tested. The gods were created to rule, not to end. And yet, after the underworld awakened, a forbidden question spread across Olympus. Silently, instinctively. What happens if a god dies? Not can a god die, but what would follow if it happened? Zeus heard the question in the pauses between thunder. Hades heard it in the patience of the dead, and both understood. This was no longer about power. It was about authority over the end of all things. Zeus's final assertion. Zeus stood before Olympus and did what kings always do at the edge of decline. He declared order. "No god stands above me," Zeus proclaimed. "I defeated the Titans. I hold the sky. I shape fate through law." And for once, no one cheered, because victory over the past did not answer the future. Athena stepped forward. "Father," she said carefully, "strength is not the same as inevitability." Zeus ignored her. He gathered every symbol of his authority. The thunderbolt, the aegis, the oaths sworn in his name since the dawn of mankind, and he descended once more, not to threaten, but to judge Hades. Sehun, the trial without a court. There was no battlefield. There was no army. Only a vast, empty plain within the underworld, older than Olympus itself. Hades stood alone, not armed, not armored, waiting. "You claim dominion," Zeus said. "You claim inevitability, but you have never faced me." Hades nodded. "Because inevitability does not challenge force," he replied. "It waits for it to exhaust itself." Zeus struck, this time with everything. Lightning did not shatter the underworld. It illuminated it. Every soul, every regret, every consequence of divine command. And for the first time, Zeus saw the full ledger. Every war blessed in his name. Every king empowered by his favor. Every life shortened by his thunder. The underworld was not rebellion. It was record-keeping. 3. The verdict Zeus cannot escape. "Enough!" Zeus demanded. "What is it you want?" Hades did not answer immediately, because desire was not his nature. "I want nothing," Hades said at last. "I already have everything." Zeus raised the thunderbolt again, but this time Hades spoke the words no god had ever spoken to Zeus. "Strike me, and tell me where your dead will go." The thunderbolt lowered, not in defeat, in understanding. Killing Hades would not prove dominance. It would erase death itself and condemn existence to endless decay. Zeus could destroy his brother, but he could not replace him. 4. The moment of truth. Zeus finally asked the question he had avoided since the Titan War. "Am I subject to you?" Hades did not smile. He did not gloat. He answered with absolute calm, "You are subject to consequence." Silence followed. Not fear, acceptance. Zeus ruled life's order. Hades ruled its conclusion. And conclusions do not answer to beginnings. V. The final balance. The Moirai appeared, uninvited. Clotho spun. Lachesis measured. Atropos held the shears. Even Zeus did not command them. Atropos looked at both brothers and spoke. "Power commands events. Death commands certainty." The judgment was not dramatic. It was final. Ending. Who is stronger? Zeus returned to Olympus, still king, still feared, still powerful, but no longer absolute. Hades returned to the underworld, still unseen, still unpraised, still inevitable. And so the verdict stands. Zeus is the strongest among the living gods. But Hades is stronger than strength itself. Because thunder can be resisted, kings can fall, empires can end, but death never needs to fight. It only waits.
Early cracks in Olympus. Contrary to popular myth, Olympus was never unanimously loyal. Poseidon resented distance. Hades resented exile. Hera resented humiliation. Even Apollo, radiant and beloved, occasionally bristled under Zeus's unpredictability. Yet, resentment alone was never enough to spark rebellion. Zeus understood that dissatisfaction could be tolerated, coordination could not. Thus, Olympus was engineered to prevent unity. Gods were given domains that isolated them. Rivalries were subtly encouraged. Personal conflicts were allowed to fester, ensuring that grievances remained individual rather than collective. A divided pantheon is a controllable pantheon. On the rare occasions when dissent aligned, such as the aborted rebellion involving Hera, Athena, and Poseidon, Zeus responded not with compromise, but with overwhelming force and public humiliation. The rebellion failed not because it lacked merit, but because it lacked time. Afterward, no god ever spoke of overthrow again. Law without appeal. Zeus was not bound by law. He was the law. There existed no divine court, no mechanism for appeal, no principle higher than his will. This absence was not accidental. It ensured that justice flowed in only one direction. When Zeus punished mortals unjustly, no one could object. When Zeus violated oaths, no one could accuse. When Zeus contradicted himself, myth adjusted accordingly. The gods learned to interpret his inconsistency as mystery, his cruelty as necessity, his fear as wisdom. This was not ignorance, it was survival. The silent transformation of fear. Over centuries, fear ceased to feel like oppression. It became tradition. Mortals prayed not out of love, but precaution. Gods praised Zeus not out of reverence, but reflex. The memory of the Titans faded into abstraction, their names reduced to cautionary tales. Zeus no longer needed to justify his authority. His rule felt inevitable, and inevitability is the final stage of domination. By the time Olympus stood unchallenged, the most dangerous truth had already been buried. Zeus did not rule because he was chosen. He ruled because no alternative was allowed to exist. The unspoken realization. Among the gods, a realization slowly emerged, never spoken, never recorded. If Zeus could overthrow his father, if Zeus could imprison the Titans, if Zeus could devour prophecy itself, then Zeus could be overthrown as well. And that possibility terrified him more than lightning ever terrified mortals. Thus, every decision, every punishment, every myth served a single purpose: to ensure that history would never repeat itself, except in Zeus's favor. Section 3/3. The greatest contradiction and the birth of divine silence. The paradox at the heart of Zeus. Zeus ruled in the name of order, yet his reign was born of rebellion. He condemned chaos, yet emerged from the most violent upheaval the cosmos had ever known. He punished dissent, yet owed his throne to defiance. This was the paradox Zeus could never resolve, and thus never allow to be spoken. Every law he proclaimed, every oath he enforced, carried an unspoken exemption: himself. Zeus demanded obedience, not because obedience was sacred, but because disobedience reminded him of his own origin. To tolerate rebellion in others was to legitimize the act that had placed him on the throne, and that was intolerable. Thus, Zeus transformed rebellion from a political act into a moral crime. Not wrong because it failed. Wrong because it existed. From king to principal. The most dangerous transformation Zeus achieved was not military or divine, it was conceptual. He ceased to be merely a ruler. He became a principle of reality. Thunder no longer meant Zeus was angry, it meant the universe was correcting itself. Storms were not punishment, they were balance. When mortals suffered, it was framed as necessity. When gods obeyed, it was called harmony. By embedding his will into natural phenomena, Zeus made opposition feel unnatural. To oppose Zeus was not to challenge a king. It was to challenge the cosmos itself. This was his most insidious triumph. The final lesson of the Titans. The Titans were not only defeated, they were reframed. In early myths, they were remembered as creators, architects of time, memory, and natural law. Over generations, those qualities were stripped away. They became symbols of savagery, excess, and blind force. Their complexity vanished. This was not erosion, it was revision. Zeus ensured that the story of the Titans would serve as a warning rather than a precedent. Any mention of their former wisdom was suppressed. Any memory of their restraint was discarded. Only their defeat remained. The lesson taught to gods and mortals alike was simple. Power that challenges Zeus is evil by definition. Thus, history itself became a weapon. The gods learned to forget. Memory is dangerous. Zeus knew this. He allowed myths to multiply, but ensured they contradicted one another. He encouraged poetry, but not accuracy. Over time, truth dissolved into symbolism. When stories conflict, certainty disappears, and with it, the capacity to judge. Olympus did not forget because it was ignorant. It forgot because forgetting was safer. Gods learned to laugh at old myths, to treat them as metaphors rather than records. The past became entertainment. The future became unthinkable. Zeus did not need to censor. Confusion did the work for him. Justice without compassion. A ruler who believes himself to be order incarnate no longer requires empathy. Zeus's judgments were absolute, but never intimate. He punished broadly, without listening, without context. Mortals were struck down as examples. Cities were destroyed as warnings. Innocence was collateral, not concern. Compassion complicates power. Zeus avoided it. Mercy creates precedent. Zeus allowed none. This is why forgiveness is absent from his mythology. There is punishment, transformation, exile, but rarely absolution. To forgive would be to admit excess. To admit excess would be to accept limitation. And limitation was the one thing Zeus could not endure. The silence of Olympus is complete. By the height of Zeus's reign, Olympus no longer debated morality. Discussions centered on interpretation, not truth. Gods asked how Zeus's will should be enacted, never whether it should be. Even dissenters framed their objections carefully, disguising resistance as concern. Silence was no longer enforced. It was internalized. The gods had learned the final rule of Zeus's order. Survival requires acceptance. Acceptance requires silence. The unanswered question. There remained one question never asked, never written, never sung. If Zeus truly embodied justice, why did his rule require so much fear? Justice that must be enforced by terror is not justice, it is stability at any cost. And Zeus chose stability over truth every time. The first seal is set. With the Titans buried, prophecy consumed, wisdom controlled, and memory fragmented, Zeus achieved what no ruler before him had accomplished. He eliminated not just his enemies, but the conditions under which enemies could arise. By the end of Part 1, Olympus stands unified, not by loyalty, not by love, but by resignation. The gods do not challenge Zeus because they believe in him. They do not challenge him because they no longer believe in challenge itself. This is the true foundation of Olympian order. Closing of Part I. Zeus did not ascend because he was the most righteous. He endured because he was the most prepared to rewrite history, prepared to weaponize fear, prepared to sacrifice truth for permanence. Thus ends the first and deepest revelation. Zeus did not create justice. He replaced it with himself.